Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of After the Snuff. I'm your host, John Millsip, and today, honestly, this has kind of been my most anticipated After the Snuff. Don't tell the rest of the cast, but I am here with Cade and Erin, our fourth and fifth jurors of Dynamic Character Productions Corkscrew Cove. We are getting to the pointy end of the stick here, and unfortunately, both of you are here and joining me today. But I'm looking forward to this. I think we are going to have a very fun time dissecting this season from both of your perspectives. Cade, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I had a long day and I'm excited to do this right now. I'm excited.
Excellent. And Erin, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, I've had some ups and downs today, but we're we've got Michigan and Texas here, and that's when we're filming in. That's really embarrassing for one side of it. So we're pushing through, but we've had a fun day outside of that.
I mean, it's clearly the one who's dressed completely in blue and gold right now. I'm sorry, I'm an Ohio State fan, so you're not going to get any sympathy from me today.
And I don't want it. Actually, I might leave now.
Oh, well, here we are. Let's just dive right in here. We started this game, and both of you were on the same tribe. You both were on the Vekoma tribe. You both won early. And I think both of you kind of had this different experience with the partner twist to start. Erin, you come in and you manage to secure one of the advantages from your partner. So just walk me through that. Walk me through the showing up for your partner, that first partner challenge, and learning what the game is all about.
Yeah, the partner twist was very interesting, and Jared as a partner was especially interesting. And he will admit this as well, that I kind of carried that partner challenge. And I was very shocked that we even got an advantage at all. And I was much less shocked when I learned that there were 3 different advantages given out. But when we got something, I was like, there's no way we won that. Like, that was insane. That man could not name like 5 Winnie the Pooh characters. Like, I don't know how this is happening. But yeah, I thought it was I was super excited. Like, I love a partner twist, and I thought it was really fun the way that you could like communicate only with your partner cross tribe. I think that's a really cool way of kind of like sort of allowing cross tribe communication. And then when I lost my partner first, that part of it really kind of sucked because then I wasn't getting any information from the other side right after my partner gets idled out, and I'm not learning any information about this like firsthand, which was really interesting. But I thought it was really fun. I had one conversation with Jared like after we did our challenge, and he wasn't super forthcoming with information because like I think everybody's kind of talked about this, how Gerstlauer was super open about who their partners were. Like, they were pretty open about that. Vekoma was not really as much. We would kind of maybe say it to somebody you trust, but like we weren't coming right out with that information. So when I called with Jared and he was like, "Oh yeah, I already know who everybody's partners with already." And I was like, okay. And he just didn't expand on that at all. Like, he didn't tell me who they were. He didn't give anything else. And I was like, well, this is our first time meeting, so I'm not going to pry, but like, I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind that you're not telling me anything. But you're telling me you know things, but you're not telling me what you know. So yeah, I was like, I like Jared. I'm sure that we could have worked together moving forward, but at the end of the day, I got a much better partner out of the deal, I think, with how everything went down.
Yeah, and you happened to kind of luck out with who your second partner was, and it happened to be someone that you cursorily knew already. So, knowing that you like didn't have a partner, did you assume you were going to get another partner afterwards?
Honestly, no. I actually really didn't. I kind of figured it would be you get your partner and then you're kind of done. I guess like the cross-tribe communication aspect of it should have made me maybe lean more the other way and thinking that I would get another partner, but like that didn't even cross my mind, just because in every other partner twist I've seen, it's kind of like, the end goal of the partner twist is that you're the last pair remaining and like you get immunity at like final 8 or something. But I've never seen it where you kind of like rely on that person like the way that it was done this season. So I was definitely not anticipating getting another partner, but it did like it kind of crossed my mind. I didn't think it was going to happen, but I was like, if it does happen, like when we voted Joe out, I was like kind of a double whammy there. Like, that's pretty two good things for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And clearly we saw like you and Benji connecting there was great for your games for a little while. Not so much as we progress further into the game. But Cade, you kind of had a different experience for that first little bit of the partner challenge because it didn't really feel like you and Ryan were connecting a lot. And granted, like you were on spring break at the time, right? When we started the game.
Yeah.
So when did this relationship with Ryan really start forming for you?
Yeah, so like before we had like done those challenges where we competed as duos, me and Ryan didn't really talk like that much. Like everybody was saying like on Vekoma, like, oh, our partners aren't giving us much. That was true for me as well. I was saying that and it was true. And then once we got to those duo partner challenges, that's when me and Ryan really started talking more because we were like, oh, we can vote together, especially during the Josh vote.
Mhm.
Because I could tell Ryan was on the bottom. So I wanted to keep him. So obviously we were going to talk more and I was going to want to keep him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense, right? And that's kind of the idea behind this partner twist is like it gives you an avenue to talk to someone else, and you kind of get lucky here where Ryan does seem to be the odd man out. Obviously, he's like not involved in that first vote. Now you don't know that really, because you don't know exactly how the votes went down and everything. But he's not involved in that first vote. You guys get to vote out Joe in that first Vekoma tribal council, and then all of a sudden you're trust and partnerships. You kind of have to make this bond here because the only consistent person you have to guarantee working with for moving forward is your partner. And we can even see, like, at this point in the game, those people who start getting closer with their partners tend to put themselves in this like middling position in this game, as opposed to the divas. And Erin, I obviously we're not going to talk about the formation of the divas at the beginning of this game because the divas really kind of neglected their partners in these partner twists, aside from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it was a situation of the four of us connected so strongly. And not only did we all connect so strongly, but it felt like every alliance that people were talking about included the four of us. Like
Mhm.
we had Tommy who made an alliance of the divas plus Tommy. We were talking about like Cade had like pitched an alliance of like him plus us five. Hath had pitched an alliance of like him plus us four. So we were like, everybody wants to work with us, and we are the ones that are involved in all of these things. And we just got along so well. Like it was such a great atmosphere, and I feel like we really leaned on each other. And I think that we see this like kind of hinder them moving forward with not making other relationships because we've got such a tight core that it felt like, you might have some peripheral relationships, you might be doing things on the side, but you're always coming back to your core. And it felt kind of obvious, and it felt like, this is the power structure, and therefore, like, why do I need to have these external relationships? Like, why do I need to be giving these people information when I am in power? Is kind of like, I think, the vibe of the divas when it started and how it kind of rolled through the game. Um, and so I think that not taking the step outside of that was kind of rough and was a little bit like of a hinder, because you don't come out of it with these strong relationships. And then you do you do see people like giving up their partner, like voting out their partner, or like being enemies with their partner at merge. Like it was super interesting, but like I think it did at the very beginning of the game when like you're not getting a lot of information from your partners, and then you do have such a solid core of people that you are spilling everything to. And like that's, another big part of the divas breakup is when when people stopped sharing everything. But yeah, I think when you have this solid group of people that you like love and love working with, and you're not getting information from other people that you could be talking to, it's like it's less enticing. It's like, okay, then why am I going to put in the effort there?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And one of the interesting things about this partner twist is it kind of gives an opportunity for people to talk to other people before, a swap and everything. Gives you a little bit of that connection to that other side. But Survivor is a game about connection and instant connection, right? And you talked about it, right? You were all getting along together and you enjoyed talking to each other. That's so important in the game. You are more likely to want to work with someone you get along with, even if you don't fully align philosophically in the game, just because you want to be if you are spending hours on end on Zoom calls with these people and messaging these people, you want to be doing it with people you enjoy spending time with, because you don't want to be sitting there being like, I am dreading this 4-hour call I have to have with someone later. Cade, did you at any point in that pre-merge suspect that this group was this like really solid alliance that was trying to run the game?
No, I had no idea. I don't know if I was blinded. I don't know. I think I thought there was a group. This was a while ago, so this is
Yeah.
what I remember. I knew there was a group. I just thought I was in that group. I thought
Right.
it was the Vekoma 6, which is what they wanted me to think. So snaps
Yeah.
to them. But that's what I
I
thought. I really thought I was in with the 6.
yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say it. If there is an alliance that has a smaller group that can be in that alliance, there's always a smaller group. And you have to, it's one of those things that anyone who plays one of our games in the future, always be aware of that. If there is an alliance, there's always a smaller alliance. That is preached in so many social strategy games. We see it in Big Brother, right? With like the Onion Alliance that's talked about all the time, right? This is one of those like key strategic things in just reality competition shows. So there's always a pecking order in an alliance, and there's always a group that's together. So it's one thing to keep out, but it's hard to recognize when you're not part of that, especially if there are people in that group who are focusing on you and giving you that. Because Cade, it kind of did seem like Katz was putting in work to make you really trust him.
Yeah, and it worked. I like the work that Katz put in with me made me think that like we were all like a happy big 6, and there was individual relationships, which there were, but it just blinded me to the fact that there was a core 4.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was because Katz was doing so good, or it was my ego thinking like, if there's a core 4, you're going to be in it. So like there isn't one because you're not in one. But I didn't know. I had no idea.
That's a really good point. And something that we don't often consider is, well, if there's something going on, I should be included. We never want to think we're the person on the outside.
Yeah.
But Erin, eventually you became the person at the outside. I mean, you know, you both kind of had similar trajectories through that pre-merge, right? Obviously, avoid that first tribal council, go to the second one, vote out show, get into the partner stuff. There are a couple things, like you spend some time on Losers Beach, you spend more time on Winners Beach, and then you hit the merge. And this is the interesting point, because now the Vekomas have the numbers, they're up. But Erin, you have this connection with an original Gerslauer that people are really scared about. So when it became like, was there any suspicion at that merge that, I mean, yeah, is there any point where like it felt like, okay, things aren't feeling right? It doesn't feel like people are talking to me the right way anymore. And did you suspect that Benji was like getting any heat whatsoever?
Unfortunately, not even a little. Not even a little bit. I knew Benji's name was out there because Hath threw it out to me. And like was like, I think we should do Benji, and I, immediately shut it down. And like obviously, and the thing is, like, Hath didn't come to me first. Other people were telling me, like, oh, by the way, Hath is throwing out Benji's name. Like Cade included was saying that to me. And I was like, okay, I'm glad that people are telling me this. That means that they don't actually want to do it. And like everybody is sitting there telling me, like, yeah, Hath is trying to make this happen. Nobody's going for it. Like nobody is saying that they want to do it. And so I said the same thing to Hath. I was like, yeah, I don't want to do it. Like obviously I'm not gonna vote out Benji. So I said it like so many times in the episode, Benji is not going home. I said it so many times, it's embarrassing. But like, yeah, I did not have even a little bit of an inkling that things were weird, that people weren't trusting me anymore. Because I was like, what Benji and I were doing at the end of the day was, in my opinion, like getting ourselves survivor insurance. In like, I had the core 4, like I had the divas, and I felt like I was building connections with other people. And I was like, I know that this 4-person alliance is strong. I know that this is not going to be the thing that rides me to the end of the game. I can't rely on this for the entirety of the game. So of course I'm going to be setting up other things. Like, of course I'm going to be bonding with other people and making other alliances. And Cade was also somebody who, like, even coming out of original Vekoma, like I had the divas, like Cade was my other person that I was like, I am not going to vote out Cade. Like 100% was never going to do that. So I was like coming in, like we bonded on the, like on Winners Beach and everything too. And that's when we like made the alliance of me, Cade, Ryan, and Benji. And I just want to say, like, the only alliances I had with Benji were that one and me and Benji and Katz, because Katz was my number 1. And he knew that. And I had told him that. And I was like, it's you and me to the end. Like, I love the Divas. This is a great alliance, but you are my guy. And Katz knew that. And that's why while I didn't tell everything to the Divas, I did tell Katz everything, except for the extra vote, because that was Benji's information to share, not mine.
Well, and you raise a really good point with that extra vote, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it is something we need to talk about, because in the aftermath of the Benji boot, we see a lot of conversation about essentially the justification the Divas get for like wanting to flip on you is you didn't give us this information. This is a game of information. Like, as much as there's like social elements to this game and strategic elements to this game, the most powerful thing you can have in this game is information. And yes, this is an advantage. Like you said, this is Benji's information to share. And honestly, commendable for you as an ally not to go disseminating that information, because it is one of those things that there's always a risk telling someone when you have an advantage. And especially in this forum where, there's other advantages floating around and you're getting the heat for this advantage that someone else has, where there was someone in the Divas who just hid information about the advantage that he had for the entire game.
That's what really got me when I watched Sam's After the Snuff, is when you brought that up to him and he was like, well, I would have told them if it became relevant. You want to know what I said when they were interrogating me about not saying anything about the extra vote? I would have told you if it became relevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of those double standards that we see in these games a lot, right? Where it's like, well, you can't bring it back on me because you did it first. And trust me, I am going to get there, because Cade, there is a lot of conversation about you doing things to me first when we get to your boot here. But Cade, you're on the other side of this Benji flip. You're kind of in like the Vekoma group minus Erin is kind of there. They're starting to say, Erin will probably turn on us. What was that experience like? And how were you, as someone who wanted to work with Erin, navigating that entire vote and then deciding, yes, I have to vote Benji out here?
Yeah, so I remember being on call, or maybe it was text, I don't know. I had just drinking my pre-workout. I was in the gym parking lot just drinking my pre-workout, like all like ready to go. And I get these texts from like Katz saying like, I don't remember if Katz said Benji told him or if like Benji and Erin told him. I was under the impression that like Erin knew, Erin told people that there was an extra vote, whatever. And that's when I felt like betrayed and used. And that's what I do not like to feel like in this game. Because as I said previously, like my ego, I like to be up here. I like to be way up here. I don't like to be down here and someone else is up here, like controlling me. And so that's when I was like, okay, Erin has to go. When I lobbied so hard for Erin to go. And I even told her I lobbied so hard, but they decided Benji had to go because of the extra vote.
And that's a really interesting thing about this vote, is they decided that Benji with the extra vote was more important to get out than Erin. And one of the big things I always advocate for, because, I mean, you may or may not know this, I was also on the receiving end of a blindside where my closest ally got voted out of the game, and also have an Erin-esque tirade afterwards. And mine and Erin's game match up surprisingly similarly when we really go through this here, but we can get into that a little more later. But it's one of those things where it's just like, go after the target, because every episode we see after this Benji vote is the Divas being scared shitless of you, Erin. Like, they just talk about how dangerous you are as a player, and they have to get you out. They have to get you out, and you're this mastermind who's bringing all these people together and things like that. And no offense to you, from the edit, you're not bringing these people together. That is not on you. Like, this happens to be the best interest of everyone who's not one of the Divas. So of course they're going to do it. You just happen to be the number they need in order to do it, and happen to also be the most vocal person at that point in the game. So it's so fascinating to just see how people will go at, and I get it. Benji has this extra vote. Benji has relationships with the Gerstlauers, but the Gerstlauers are also all over the place. Do I need to remind you of that Benji vote? Obviously, that vote hadn't happened yet, but there were 5 people who received votes at that tribal council. Like, they were not on the same page whatsoever.
Sorry,
It's just
I'm just looking for a meme that Benji sent in our chat.
okay.
Because- Hold on, let's see if it'll. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. And we see Hathaway talk about that later too, right? Hathaway's talking about the fact, like, is Erin the threat here, who is like completely disarmed, cut off from all of her allies, or is it this our alliance that's running the game that has 2 hidden immunity idols? It's fascinating how when you look at the game and you're trying to figure out target priority, and that is the hardest thing in any game in tabletop games, in card games, in board games, anything. Target priority is the most important skill you can learn. And if you're threatened by someone, that's who you should go after. Yes, you can cut off their resources. And we kind of, from a historical standpoint, that is how a lot of wars are won, right? Like you get the supply route out of there. But if you leave someone around who you think is so dangerous they can get people to rally with them, you're giving them the opportunity to have people rally with them. And in Cade, we see that. We see that right after the Benji vote, where Cade's like, yeah, I'm in. Like, let's do this.
So, can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
That is the exact reason why I wanted Erin out that round, is because I knew she could rally the votes. I knew Erin could be vocal. I have never played a game with Benji, but the vibe I got from Benji with this game, he could not be as vocal as Erin could be. He could not be as against these people as Erin could be. And he cannot be seen as his leader as Erin was. And so I knew that if Erin stayed, she could rally the votes the next round. Little did I know I would be one of those votes. And actually, I was thinking about this as y'all were talking. If Benji had stayed and Erin went, I don't know, retrospectively, I could say that I would flip that round. Maybe a few rounds later, I don't know if I would have flipped that very next round. So I think it worked out for me not getting what I wanted, but it didn't work out for Sam because he's the only one that went in between that, besides Tawni.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about that flip, because it is very pivotal to what's happening in this post-merge here, right? You have decided Erin doesn't get voted out. Benji's gone. Erin comes out flying hot after that Benji vote. It's just like cussing everyone out and making it so that, making it very clear, you guys just like completely ostracized me. There is no chance we can work together whatsoever. But then there's you, Cade. And you come out and you're like, you know what? Maybe my position on this tribe isn't that great, because, and rightfully so, you just saw your tribe turn on someone who happened to be in their 4-person alliance. Now, of course, you didn't know that, but like this was someone who was entrenched in them and they're willing to turn on her. So what's preventing them from doing that to you? And how were you feeling about your positioning within that original Vekoma group at the merge? And what motivated you to flip at this point?
So there was Hath said something in one of their confessionals that was like, if this happened separately and if this happened separately, neither of these would make me want to flip. But the fact that they happen together makes me want to flip. And that's how I feel with Katz telling me after he voted out Erin about the divas, and then right before he voted out Erin about his idol, that because he thinks Erin is gonna like leak both of those things. And I was like, why am I
after he voted out Benji? Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, whatever. Wow, I was like, why am I finding this out? Because you think it's gonna leak. Like that does not sit well with me. That's when I was like reevaluating my position in the game. And then I realized like Sam and Jordyn would text me around the same time, like within like the same like 5 minutes, basically saying the same thing. Multiple times. And I was like, so they're probably a tie duo. And then I just lumped Katz in there because Katz is in with everybody. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm on the bottom. I was like, I hope I'm above half. But like being 4th in a 5-person alliance, that's not great at all.
Not where you want to be. Not at all.
No, I would do for 3rd because in the first 2 I get targeted by the other side. But 4th is just like, you're just going to go soon. Like you're expendable. So I was not happy with that.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to that, like, information is power in this game, right? And Erin, you get this leverage of power by knowing things about the divas existing and about Katz's idol. And because of that, it kind of just sends the divas spiraling because they have to get ahead of you on that information, which actually means that you get the power of the information instead of them. And it's enough to scare Cade, right? It's enough to question, like, we see Hathaway questioning everything because of it too, right? It's so, again, it's so important how you manage information in this game. It's better just not to say anything a lot of the time. But again, like, public advantages made it hard. Katz obviously solving the idol clue, or like having Jordyn solve the idol clue in a alliance call, and then having Katz be like, yo, I submitted this first and I had to do this and tell you all about it because of the way that this idol clue works. It makes everything a little difficult, and it makes it so that it's hard to manage information. I made a mistake in my game. I told people about an idol because I was like, oh, it's not good for us to put votes on Jim Bunce in this first round because it's gonna, if there's a swap and we rely on him at that swap, he's more likely to swap. And I'm like, oh, we did this majority. So I tell my closest allies at the time about my idol. That comes back to bite me. And it makes it so that they want to get me out because I have an idol. And then I solve an idol on a call with Greg. And then Greg's like, John has an idol. It's like, cool. Now they know I have 2 idols. That's not fun. But it's getting ahead of that information and just like keeping it to yourself. It's so hard. And I get it. I get it. When you have an advantage, it's really hard to keep it quiet because you know the power of it and you know what you can do with it. But I mean, Sandra Diaz Twine tells, it's the first thing that she says is, don't tell anyone about your advantages. You got to listen to the queen. She's telling you. And using this information, honestly, it feels to me, watching everything go down, the divas didn't use information to their advantage ever. Yes, they had it. They were getting information. They were collecting information, but they were never taking advantage of that information as a group. And it's kind of what leads us to this point where, Cade, you flip, and the two of you are using information to unite the Gerstlauers, who were an absolute mess. And the first time you attempt it, it's still an absolute mess because somehow Tawni decides to not vote with you and gets rocked out, which is also just the perfect smokescreen for you, Cade.
Oh my god, I cannot stress how lucky I got with that. And even the words she said on her way out, she was like, I flipped to cause rocks. And the Vekoma, the divas, they were like, so she was voting with us and then she flipped because she knew it would cause rocks. And I was like, yes, yeah. That's what happened. You're right, guys.
Yeah, and her saying like, I say like, Sam and Erin thank me because I saved both of you. I'm like, no, you just saved Sam. I was never going home no matter who you voted for. You just saved Sam. Like, so yeah. I thought it was very funny. It was, yeah.
And it's funny because there's this irony. Like, did you two know that Tawni had to have been the person then who voted with the other side right away and knew how to manage that information in that next round when you're going after Sam?
After she said that, I was like, I was so annoyed. I don't know. I was trying to keep a poker face because I didn't know what the next round would hold after that. And I fully expected to go into that call getting yelled at by the Vekoma minus Erin. But it did not turn out that way. And so I just rolled with it.
Yeah, it is masterful. Watching you talk with the Vekomas after that tribal council, and you just being like, you knew immediately what you had to do. You knew immediately, oh, Tawni's gone. I get to blame everything on Tawni here.
Yeah.
And it was perfect. And that is, again, it's one of these like social strategy 101 type of situations that people just don't use for some reason. But if you need to blame someone, blame the person who's not there to defend themselves. Conveniently, it was the exact perfect person to blame for this situation. But also, like, at any point, if there's something going on, you're like, yeah, it was their idea. Don't look at me. You voted them out. It's fine. We're good.
Problem solved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we get into this Sam vote, which is a very interesting vote because there's another person who wants to flip on the Vekomas at this point. Hathaway's here, and they just want to also, they're looking at their position and being like, they've come to the same realization you did, Cade. It's like, I'm on the bottom of this group. I need to do something if I want to get to the end. And this is always the interesting point of the game. We get to this point where everyone wants to, position themselves. Again, it's a game of positioning. You have to set yourself up. You have to sacrifice your pawns, get further into the game. And we're now at a point where, these people are a little too strong. So we got to flip. None of you guys seem to trust Hathaway at all, though. So, Erin, what were you thinking when Hathaway also seems to be coming over? And we even see in the episode Hathaway's trying to act as like double agent, but Kay's already a double agent and everything. So makes things much more complicated. What was going through your head? And like, how do you approach someone who you were originally like kind of working with and now seems to be seeing the light that you've already seen because you've had a direct attack against you?
Yeah. I was never honestly working that closely with Hath. Like, I think there was like the power structure of early Vekoma was like, yeah, we had the Vekoma 6, and I think it's because like Katz was really close with Hath, and like Katz was kind of like, and then I was really close to Cade, and so those were the people that we like also wanted to bring in. But I was never super close to Hath. I love Hath. I think they are one of the most fun people I have ever played with. None of our conversations were ever real. Like we had like such a mix of like at a certain point after Benji was voted out, we started kind of being more real with each other. Like they were like, oh yeah, I've been terrified of you, like I've been targeting you, blah blah blah, and I was like, oh yeah, and I don't want to work with you either, so I have been lying to you too. And yeah. So I like in my big expose tour of telling everyone about the divas and everything, which I will say, I didn't tell everyone everything. I didn't spill about Katz's idol to anybody. That was Cade. I did not tell a single person about Katz's idol, because I told him that I wouldn't, and I wanted to stick to that. And he kept texting me like so confused of like, why aren't you telling anybody about this? Like, what is your game plan? What are you doing? And I was like, I told you I wasn't going to tell anybody, and I'm not, and I don't have to explain myself to you. So it was very funny.
Erin and I only talked about Katz's idol because I brought it up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I did not spill about that. Which I think was, but yeah, one of my favorite confessionals is Jordyn in that Benji vote listing all of the reasons why I'm more dangerous, and so like all like why I am dangerous. Like she knows about this, and like she can do this, but we're gonna vote out Benji. And I was like, okay, let's do it. But yeah, coming out of that, and like I think I was kind of seen as the figurehead partially because of the Gershflowers all not voting together at that Benji vote, and then coming together to all vote together, and they're like, oh, then Erin must have like been the leader that they needed, or like been the one to do that. And I'm like, I talked to these people, and I helped them and like talked them through figuring out what the best thing for all of us is, sure, but like I was so devastated, honestly. Like I was having such an emotional time when it went to rocks, because I was so excited to be safe. Like you can see me like fist pumping and like high-fiving my friends in that board game bar during that tribal, but like I did not want any of the people who saved me to go home. So I was so like extra thrilled when it was Tawni, but like while she was talking, I was like trying to like make my face seem like I wasn't, so that they would think that Tawni flipped on them or like whatever. And so it was such a roller coaster. But like I meant what I said in my voting confessional for my Sam vote, where I was like, if the idols are both played here, if I go home, as long as that helps my people, that is all that I cared about at that point. Because I was like, I knew that at that point I was like, these people are so tunnel visioned on me that they are not voting for anybody else, and I know that. And so I know that like at that point I was like, I'm not making the end. I had not resigned myself to that, because I was obviously fighting and like trying to make sure that I was still in round after round, but I was playing for survival at that point. But I was like, there's no shot that I'm making the end. So I just want to make sure that the people that I feel deserve it, and the people that like came together for me, make it to the end. So I would have been so devastated if any of the people who voted with me got rocked out, like truly. But yeah, with Hath, all of our conversations were so funny. Like, yeah, we could be half real with each other, but half not. And like, we didn't really work together the entire game. So I was like, why do I believe what you're telling me right now? And especially when like they're telling me all of these things, and then Cade is like, oh yeah, and then whatever you say to them, they're running right back to the divas. And it's like, because they were trying to do this double agent thing or whatever. But I'm like, okay, but how do I know you're not just like putting on this front, trying to build this up to me? Like, and I was like, okay, so the whole thing there was like they were so adamant too that they were like the vote has to be Katz, like that's the head of the snake, whatever, like that's who we have to go after. And the reason we voted Sam is because I knew that Katz would think that I was only going to vote for him because he thought that I was going to be so tunnel visioned on him the way that he was so tunnel visioned on me. And I was like, I know you think I'm going to vote for you. I know you have an idol, so why would I vote for you? And so when Hath was like only willing to vote Katz pretty much, I was like, okay, if you're lying to me, then I'm obviously not going to tell you the truth. If you're not lying to me, then you're not going to do what I want you to do anyway. So why does it matter to me?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're completely right. And Cade, whose idea was it to tell Hath, yeah, we're going to vote Katz, and then just like essentially test his loyalty at that, or test their loyalty at that point?
I don't know. Hath didn't know I was also a double agent working with them. To Hath, I was still with Vekoma.
Right.
So I don't know. That's an Erin question.
Okay, Erin?
I think it was probably a collective idea. Like we had a couple calls with like all 5 of us, or at least like we saw the one with like the 4 of us without Cade, and like I think like we talked through a lot of things together. I didn't have a lot of one-on-one conversations with Gabby, but I also had a lot of one-on-one conversations of like brainstormings with Ryan and with Cade and with Bryant. And like, I don't know. I don't think that there was like necessarily a person that was like, let's all lie to Hath. But I think we were all like, Hath has never worked with us. Why are we trusting them? Like if they wanna vote for Katz, that's great. But Katz is much more likely to play his idol than Sam is. And I was sitting there pitching like, and even if they both play their idols, it's me going home. So it's no sweat off your guys' backs.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Cade, I want you to talk about being double agent, because that is something that we don't often get to talk about. And we don't often see like it come to fruition here. And more importantly, we don't usually see someone be able to survive 2 rounds while doing it because of rocks obscuring the fact that they were doing it. So how hard was that for you to just like continue pretending to be working with the Vekomas?
I mean, it really wasn't that hard, if I'm being honest. Like at least the Sam round, it wasn't. Wait, no, yeah, it wasn't that hard. Because they really were so laser focused on Erin. All I had to do was be like, yeah, Erin, with my pitchfork, and just like ride the wave. And then like everything they were saying, I was going back. And then when I remember when I realized that Hath was also trying to be a double agent, because someone had told me that Hath had pitched Katz to them, but then I had just asked Hath, and I was like, what did y'all decide on? And they were like, oh, I don't know yet. And I was like, you don't know yet, but this person's telling me Katz. And so that's when I knew that's when I knew Hath was also trying to be a double agent, but I knew I had to keep telling the Gerschlauer side that like they were not being a double agent, like they were being a fake double agent. It was very confusing. That part was harder than actually being a double agent, because I had to keep lying to both sides about Hath, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of the difficulty with these games in general, is you kind of get to a point where you just have to lie all the time. And that's why trust is so hard to come by in these games, because everyone knows they're lying to everyone all the time.
And the lies, they just like overlap in your head, and it's just like your mind is like, I'm already so scatterbrained, but with the lies added in, and you have to keep up with how many lies you're telling these people and how many lies you're telling this people. It's just like your brain feels like it's like going like this, and mine just exploded eventually, but we'll get to that.
And I do want to say something in defense of Hath like only wanting to do Katz at that vote, because it's like if you are the person that's flipping, you should be the one to like say who you're flipping on. I think that is completely fair. But what Hath didn't know is that we already had somebody, and like that they didn't need to flip, so we didn't need their vote. So it's like you don't get to actually direct this vote. But they didn't know that. So
I thought they were like coming from a position of power flipping into this.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Well, and that actually brings up one of Erin's biggest confessionals, in my opinion, where, Erin, you mentioned that these Vekomas have no idea how to play with power in the game. And we see that. And honestly, playing with power is way more difficult than playing from the bottom in a game. In the bottom, you get to take risks. I mean, we see Bryant's confessionals many times. He said a couple of them at this point, where he talks about This game isn't for $1 million. You have to be willing to take risks if you want to win. Like, that's just how it goes. And when you're playing from the bottom, you have that opportunity. You can make risks. It's why Cade is able to flip, and it makes a lot of sense because he's on the bottom of a group. It's why you, Erin, can just go over there and be like, yo, use me. Like, let's get them out of here. Let's just do this. It's a position of the bottom is also a position of power, but it's not the same type of position of power where you have this control of the game. Because the harder thing when you are controlling the game is you have to manage assets. When you're on the bottom of the game, you get to be an asset. And yes, you have the power in being able to kind of be like, okay, the way Hat's approaching this, right? Of, okay, let's vote Katz because that's the person I'm willing to flip on. But it's so much harder when you're like manipulating everyone, especially because your ego can get in the way. And I think we see that a lot with these divas. A diva, very appropriate name for this alliance, because, and we see it. There are a lot of confessionals from Katz, and Katz, I'm sorry, I kind of got to dig into you a little bit here. There are a lot of confessionals in this week's episodes where Katz is talking about, oh, well, you know, he says it to you, Cade, like, you betrayed me first. Or he says it to Hathaway, and I think he says it to you too. You betrayed me first, so I get to betray you now. And like, you know, Erin did this, so I get to betray Erin now. And it's just like it's very similar to how Tawni approaches Kagayan. Tawni literally says that in his final tribal speech when he's talking about the LJ boot in that season, and it doesn't really work. It is actually one of the weakest parts of Tony's argument in that season to win that season, and we're kind of obscured from that because Tawni is one of the greatest Survivor players of all time. But it's so wild to me that we see people and they're just, the divas thought so much that they were just in so much control of the game that nothing could go wrong. That when things did start going wrong, they didn't know how to react to it. They didn't know how to readjust their position because they were so entrenched with each other and they weren't building those relationships that were necessary to get them going. That's why after the Sam boot, the person who really orchestrates Cade's boot is Bryant. We see Bryant pushing for your boot here, Cade, and Bryant is the one who leverages information, says, hey, you guys think Cade just flipped last round? It was actually the round before. And he intentionally starts sowing this distrust in you to utilize these scrambling divas at this point to control the game. And again, that is someone who has been on the bottom this entire time, has been essentially left out to dry since the Josh boot and has been just neglected from the game, taking that moment, realizing the position that he's in, and utilizing it to manipulate a vote.
Sounds like me.
It does sound like you, because you did the exact same thing. You just might have done it a little bit too early for the better of in your game, because you're sitting here and Bryant's still playing the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bryant did great
after the Snuff with me.
But now that we're talking about your boot here, Cade, let's get into this episode. And of course, Bryant's stoked because the results of the vote beforehand gets rid of both idols. Like, you couldn't ask for anything better. Gets rid of both idols and has Hathaway voting for Katz. Like, literally perfect situation for both of you, where somehow one of you still ends up going home that episode. But perfect situation, right? You get rid of both advantages, which were scary, and you are taking away more numbers from this Vekoma group by like sowing this distrust between Katz and Hathaway. Yes, Erin.
Here's why I think that was not ideal. And I said it in that Sam episode too, is that I think our side would have been more likely to stick together if there was still an idol in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was part of the big scary of the divas was like they have these two idols. And I think if they still had one of them, it wouldn't have been as tempting to like stray away from our group and like throw Cade under the bus and everything, because we would still have this idol to worry about. Like the divas' view of me as this like big, bad, terrible villain, like horrible human being for playing Survivor, how dare I? versus like our view was like how like our side was kind of viewing the idols of like that's what needs to go and like that's what we need to get rid of. So I was like, as long as I could keep these people like tunnel visioned and focused on getting these idols out that we know are only gonna like fuck us over, that's what's benefiting me. So like I even said it in the episode. I was like, I actually think it's better if only one idol leaves the game tonight, like with Sam getting voted out. So
that is such a great point, Erin. And I think that only benefits you and I. I only see that retrospectively.
Yeah.
But I think that's an amazing point.
It is, because I think this is really an opportunity for Bryant and Gabby here, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, that is the best possible situation for those two players. And Ryan to an extent, but Ryan still had those connections with Vekoma that, you know, he could kind of leverage at a moment, but like
Ryan was also way more locked in with me and Cade than anybody else was. Like,
we see that a lot in these conversations about the three of you working together. But in this episode, the beginning essentially just starts with Katz and this Katz and Hathaway conversation and Katz is just like, I knew I wasn't your number one. And Hathaway says, you look at every single confessional when this comes out, and you will see that I am not saying nothing but being your number one. Katz, I'm sorry you got egg in your face on this one, because that is exactly what we have seen from Hathaway all season. Hathaway is so locked in with you. But, I mean, at the same time, also flipped on you. So I get that. But they just realized that they viewed it was an imbalance in power in that relationship where Hathaway was willing to ride it out with Katz, but they realized that Katz didn't want to ride it out with them. Katz wanted to work with Sam and Jordyn, so it made more sense. Now, I don't know why Hathaway decided Katz was the big vote here. I look forward to talking to Hathaway in there after the Snuff to find out exactly why that was the name that they were pushing here. It probably had to do with the idol, but it's so interesting because it built this tension between the two. And it's how do you move forward in that position? And that is honestly a big topic of conversation on this season as a whole, is this idea of trust. How do you trust each other? Like, we voted against each other. How do we trust each other moving forward? We haven't been on the same page. Can we trust each other moving forward? And especially in a season where, yes, it seemed like there was this dominant alliance running everything. But as Ryan says in his confessionals in this pair of episodes, this is a voting block season. Like, there have been no alliances since the merge. Yes, Cade.
I love that Ryan said that, because I feel like alliances are more for Big Brother and voting blocks are more for Survivor. Because, like, you said something earlier, like, oh, you betrayed me so I can betray you. I think that is such a small-minded way of thinking about Survivor. Because each round is a whole totally brand new round each time. And I think whoever makes the most out of that round, whether or not this person just screwed you last round, if you can bring them in and vote with you for this round, I think that's a win. So I don't think alliances are necessary in Survivor unless they happen to work out for you.
Yeah, that's confirmation bias. We don't use confirmation bias. That's a bad way of evaluating things. Erin, what do you think about this, like, alliance versus voting block structure? Like, and what Kate's saying here?
I think that is applicable to this season. Personally, I am like, and I am such an alliance person because I really do love to play like such a loyal game, and I was ready to. Just unfortunately, I wanted to be loyal to a lot more people than I feasibly could in this season. But you know, that's on casting for casting such amazing people. But I think it is really interesting because then it's like, yeah, I would love to play an alliance game, and I think that it is a good way to play if you kind of actually all trust each other, which, like, yeah, I think that the three divas did for a good while. And so I think that's why, and I think maybe that's why that was like the big scary, like looking like the big scary alliance power structure, because that was like the people that were actually voting together round after round after round, and like the only solid actual alliance at that point. But yeah, like Kate said, it is about like managing relationships and making sure that you like do everything right round after round to make sure that you are the alliance that wins out at the end of the day. Because like you can bring people back in if they betray you. Like I would have been possibly willing to go work with the Divas again after Benji, but they mishandled me so badly after that, like still blindsiding me and then fully putting the blame on me afterwards of like, yeah, we did this because you made mistakes, because you did all of these things. And instead of being like, yeah, we did this, you did this, but like, let's work on it, let's work through it, and like, you know, let's talk it out. But like every explanation I gave, they were like, no, actually, you just suck and are a terrible person. And I was like, you know, but yeah, I think I love alliances. I think that they can do really well, but I think it is a lot harder to have that trust in Survivor because you also at the like ultimately you're not just relying on like comp wins like you are in Big Brother at the end of the game once you get there with your alliance. Like you have to rely on other people, and you have to kind of usually rely on if you don't feel like you're at the top of your alliance, like the very top, then yeah, that's probably not the best game for you. So I think that voting blocks do make more sense unless you do feel like you have like a locked down solid number one, a nice solid comfy alliance surrounding that, and then yeah, just the onion building out. Like I think that that can work, but it is very difficult to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like you said, managing relationships is so important, and especially in these blindside moments, because we've seen it from the best of the best. They can manage blindsides. They know how to manage the people that they blindside to work with them moving forward. And I mean, I'm not one to talk. I went scorched earth after I was blindsided. But you have to leave the opportunity if you really want to get to the end of this game. And based on what we saw in the episodes and from what you're saying, Erin, like the Divas didn't give you that opportunity. They weren't like, hey, we were scared of Benji because we thought that was an avenue for you to leave us. And we like how they should have framed it was, we value you so much, we had to get rid of Benji so that we could have you. But instead, like you said, they blamed you for it. They blamed you for not giving them information. They blamed you for just, you know, trying to flip on them first.
And they said to my face, we had rounds of voting without you. Like when I was on Winner's Beach and they were on Loser's Beach, they were like, we had rounds without you, so we didn't know where you would stand coming out of this. And I'm like, okay, so you came out of this already not trusting me. So I guess I'm glad I bought my Survivor insurance because I clearly needed it.
Yeah.
Erin, I have a question.
Yes.
Was there anything the Divas could have done after the Benji vote that would have had you open to working with them?
Yeah.
Like what?
Like just not fully blaming me. Like it was decided in those calls. Like my call with Jordyn and Sam wasn't great. It was a million times better than my call with Katz after the Benji vote. Yeah. And just to be clear, those were my last calls with those people in the entire game. I did not have a single other call with Jordyn, Sam, or Katz and in the entire rest of the game following our like makeup, like our damage control calls after the Benji vote. So yeah, the door did become completely closed after my conversation with Katz because it was just tremendous mishandling of post blindside. Like if they would have handled it of saying like we were afraid that you were closer with this person, like we value you too much, you have all of this blah blah blah, but instead it was like we knew you had all of this information, we did it anyway because of Benji's extra vote, because you didn't tell us about it, and because you had all these other alliances, like blah blah blah. And and pretty much like I was, and it just really pissed me off the way they were pretty much saying, we know you have all of this information, we did it anyway because we don't think you can do anything with it, is pretty much what it felt like to me.
You know, I asked that because I was like, I don't think there's anything they could have said if I was you. I was like, I don't think there's anything they could have said to me to make me want to work with them again. But then I was like, that goes against what I was just.
Yeah, with the voting blocks and closing doors. Yeah.
So, just like,
he's good.
He's good. He's back.
Hello.
Did you want to finish that thought, Cade?
Yeah, as I was saying, I realized like I was being a hypocrite because that goes against what I was just saying about being like small-minded. Like you just backstabbed me. I'm not going to work with you.
Yeah.
So,
if they would have handled it right, I would have left the door open. Like I don't like closing doors in Survivor, but because of how they handled it, those doors were just fully closed for me
And locked.
and locked. Yeah.
And that's just not a smart way of approaching Survivor. I mean, if you look at some of the most dominant gameplays in Survivor, look at Kim Spradlin, right? If you watch One World, which I know some people don't like doing, the season's better than you think. It's fine. Count how many times she says the word options in her confessionals. And like that's something that I think is kind of lost because it's a more maligned season of Survivor, that people don't really watch how dominant of a performance that is, and don't realize she's outlining her entire game in confessionals so that you know exactly what she's doing. It's all about options. And when we get into these games, we can be too emotional. I mean, Erin, I think you were fantastic, but I think your downfall is how emotional you got at some points in this game. Like, I think that really prevented you from being able to get over this like little bit and like pushing just a little bit deeper into the game. You said you were drawing dead. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think you had an opportunity to go further in this game, but it relied, it's that shedding of the ego too. And it's like, yes, the divas are mishandling this 100%. I've already made it very clear that I think that, but sometimes even when things are being mishandled, we have to shed our own personal ego in that situation. And I'm speaking from someone who also did this exact same thing in my DCP game, where I didn't let it go. And I was like, no, fuck you, scorched earth. My only intent now, and I said this to the people I needed to get that vote going, I don't care when I go as long as she goes next. Right? Like, and it's, we're human beings. We're fallible. Like, and emotions are some of the worst things for us to ever deal with. So that is the real trick to Survivor, is managing your emotions so that you have options still. Because
That's interesting. I actually didn't think I was emotional at all while I was playing. I
but
really think that I kept myself together.
I think that's part of it though, right? Like, I think that is part of that mismanagement of emotions, is not realizing when we're being emotional.
No, I was fully kidding. I am like, no, I cannot express how much I relate to Carolyn Wigger from Survivor 44. Like, I've never felt so seen by somebody playing Survivor, because yeah, you are allowed to be emotional, because guess what? You're a human fucking being and you have emotions. That does not mean you are not strategic. That does not take away from any other part of your game. You can use your emotions and you can use those to your benefit. And yeah, sometimes it's also to your detriment. And I think that, yeah, 100% like closing those doors was emotional. I think that there was an opportunity for the door to be opened with at least Jordyn in the future. I would have loved to like rekindle with Jordyn and keep talking with her. Like I said, there were no calls between me and any of the divas after the like Benji damage control. I still had texts with a couple of them, not really with Sam. My and Katz's one-on-one is so funny following the Benji vote. I want to say it's passive aggressive. It's not. It's full aggressive. Like back and forth. It's so bad. Like following the Tawni rocks, because he, you know, was convinced that she flipped to, you know, force rocks and everything. He texted me, you just lost a number. And I said, okay. And then he sent me a thumbs up. And that's about the energy of our texts following that. And it was just a lot of that. But Jordyn and I had some like, I like sent her text like, hey, your hair looks really nice, by the way, and like after a tribal or something. So like we were still on like friendlier terms at least. But just the way that I was just, you know, having my name written down time after time after time by these people, it just felt like even if I wanted the door to be open again, they voted for me after the Benji vote. Every single opportunity they had to vote for me, they took.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, I don't know if, even if Erin had her doors open, I don't know if it would be reciprocated.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Again, I think the emotions went both ways on this in this, and I think a lot of that comes down to, we see it in some of these conversations. There's a small little call we see in this episode where Cass and Jordyn are like, Cade and Hathaway were right to flip on us. If you are ever at a moment in a Survivor game where you are saying that, you're not playing the Survivor game that you think you're playing. Because there shouldn't be an opportunity where it's right for someone to flip on you. And again, like, this is something that a lot of people who watch Survivor don't realize, because sometimes we have to disconnect ourselves as Survivor fans from Survivor, because we as viewers want that. I talk about it all the time whenever I am podcasting about reality TV. I want drama. That's why I watch reality TV. Like, I love it when you guys get emotional with each other and start hating each other. That's fantastic television. That is what brings in viewers. It's what makes this so entertaining. As a player, I don't want drama. I want things to go as smoothly as possible. And if I am giving someone the opportunity where the correct thing for them to do is to flip on me, I'm thinking too far ahead. I'm not paying enough attention to what's happening in the game because I have given them the opportunity to flip on me in the first place. And like, again, this is kind of this, like, it's the interesting thing about Sam going here is, like, it's this hubris of the divas showing through here, where it's like, okay, we thought we were controlling anything. We're not. How do we adjust? And there's just not that adjustment. They're thrown a lifeline in this episode by Bryant being like, hey, let's get Cade out of here. Because otherwise, they're losing potentially their only remaining ally in Hathaway. And Hathaway also just turned on them.
Yeah.
But Cade, you have an interesting conversation with Katz in the beginning of this episode. And it's Katz just, like, interrogating you. And I will want to make sure I'm using the word interrogate, because that's how it goes. What is your plan moving forward? And again, this is one of those.
That's what he was texting me. Like, what is your plan? I'm like, what? You need to know.
It's just like, I get it. As someone who loves working with logical players, I like knowing the logic behind the way people are thinking. It helps me process the game better. Katz, these guys just flipped on you. There's no way they're telling you what their plan was.
Exactly. And I was like, I wasn't willing to tell him that I actually flipped on him like a couple rounds ago.
Yeah.
And he was like, so you're just like hoping that it's going to work out? Or I don't remember exactly the words he said, but it was just like, I'm not going to actually tell you what I did, dude. Like, stop. I'm not going to actually tell you what I plan on doing either. Stop asking me.
Yeah. And what you do say is, no, I want Erin to go. Like, Erin is clearly winning this game if we let her get to the end.
Which is true. I did want her to go that round.
Yeah, it makes sense. It does make sense. And especially at that point where, Erin, you've been the obvious. We saw it in Survivor 46 this year, right? Where Q was the obvious decoy vote for so long that eventually it's just like, yes, Q has to be the vote. Because if not, it's not going to work. Erin's like going through all of her 9 lives at this point. You just got to kill her at some point. Like, you need to get her out of the game. Obviously, they don't get the opportunity this round because of what happens later in this episode. But it makes sense for you to say that. But then Katz's rebuttal to you is that he would love to work with you. And you just say, you told Ryan that last round, and then immediately told me that that was a lie.
I said that?
You did. You said that to Katz on a call in the episode.
So we're talking to regular Cade. You want to be talking to Final 8 Cade. He's not here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Final 8 Cade was a whole different guy. I don't know who that guy is. It's not me right
So.
now.
So we start seeing a little more conversation here. It's a lot of Hathaway in this episode. Hathaway's talking to you, Cade, about how Katz has clearly made final twos with like everyone in the game at this point. And like really positioning himself strategically. And then we see Jordyn and Hathaway kind of talking about, you know, Hathaway being like, yo, I was kind of on the bottom. And Jordyn's trying to pitch that her and Sam weren't a duo. Sorry, Jordyn. And no one's believing that. I know we're clearly not believing it because we've seen the episodes. I don't think anyone in the game would believe that either, though. Yeah, and then this is, again, one of those instances where they're just, Jordyn literally says, Erin's going to win the game. Like, we have to get rid of Erin. Watching this back, how are you reacting? Watching all of these calls and all these confessionals about how scared these people were of you?
I don't think my ego can get much bigger at this point, if I'm being honest. It's it's funny and it's so nice. And I get it. Like the amount of people that like it wasn't a lot, but like Hath said it in the episode and like Katz said it to me after the Sam vote. He said, "You are the best Survivor player I have ever seen." And I was like, "This is insane." Like like this is a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
I'm not like single-handedly controlling this game. Like I'm not doing anything too crazy. I'm just surviving.
Yeah.
Like that's the name of the game. So I I I don't know. I enjoy it, obviously. It's very complimentary. And it's like once you get that stink on you of like this person's gonna win, this person is like scary, this person is dangerous, which I genuinely had on me from the beginning. People were like people in the pre-merge, half in the pre-merge was like Erin is terrifying. Like she needs to go immediately. Like I had that stink on me the whole game, but yeah, it really came around when I survived after the Benji vote. And it's like, oh, she got people, and especially with the perception that like I got people to go to rocks for me, which was not true. I actually, was super bummed about that. But like yeah, once I got that perception on me, there's just no way to shake it. Even when I clearly did not have agency anymore, when I was not making the decisions anymore, like what as soon as like Bryant and Gabby were like, we're gonna do this thing, we're not like as soon as I didn't need to be a number anymore, I was like, I'm not dangerous. But at this point, it's like once I've had that stink on me the entire game, it's like, yeah, if I'm sitting at the end, I don't have to say much. They're probably just gonna vote for me.
Sometimes it's nice just being that bigger target the entire game, where like people, because it's like I don't have to do anything. I just have to like make sure I survive to the end.
Yeah,
and
it would have been nicer if I had an idol, but yeah.
Of course. It's really interesting that you mentioned this idea that like Hathaway picked up on the fact that you were like a threat early on in the game in the pre-merge, because I don't know if you remember the draft, but I legitimately said, yeah, we interviewed Erin and she has this poster of Survivor Michigan on the wall behind her. Like, she does that? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, she sits there and that's there. I'm thinking, yeah, Erin knows what she's doing. But everyone else on production was like, yeah, no one cares about that, John. I'm like, I care, so someone probably will. But
the only person that knew really what it was Ryan.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
But Cade, like, you kind of have this opposite thing where it felt like people weren't really respecting you too much at this point. So it's so interesting. Obviously, Cade has someone talking to him at this point, so we'll get back to that question there. We do get to this interesting point where Hathaway and Bryant are having a conversation about not being able to work with each other, and they're like, yeah, we've just been kind of in opposite sides, but can we put that aside? And again, this is exactly what we were talking about, emotions in the game and just like shedding your ego. They're like, yeah, we haven't worked together. That doesn't mean we can't work together. And they both agree that it's in their best interest to do so. They both agree, they can pick up Jordyn and Katz. They correctly identify Jordyn and Katz are the numbers that have to be gained here. Whoever gains Jordyn and Katz here is gaining control of the game. But they don't think they can convince Ryan to vote out Erin. And I quite frankly agree with them. I don't think they could have convinced Ryan to vote you out, Erin. Cade, just looping back on what I was saying, you were kind of in the opposite situation of Erin, from my opinion. Just watching through everything, you weren't considered this major threat in this game. So how do you feel like navigating that? Is like, as we're getting to the end of the game here, and obviously, unfortunately, you go home here instead. Were you at this point trying to think, how do I pitch so that I can win the game?
Okay, so despite how I'm acting right now, it's been so far away since this happened. I'm like relying on my very foggy memory on this.
Yeah, of course.
But if I made it to the end in that game, I do not think I would have a lot of trouble explaining my game. I
don't think so either.
Worried about it. I have made PowerPoints for Final Tribals before.
Okay. Wow.
So, like 40 slide PowerPoints. So
and I will say, as the like scariest person in the game, Cade was somebody I would have been afraid to sit next to at Final Tribal. I wanted to do it anyway, but I was like, I think the one person in this game that can beat me and maybe should beat me is Cade. But I would have taken him anyway.
We had a call and she told me that, and I was like, oh yeah, me too. But in my head, I was like, keep in mind this is Final 8, Cade. I was like, okay, she's telling me this. So she's really telling me she wants to take me out this round, but I was like, no, she doesn't want to take me out this round. But like, why is she telling me this? Is she taking me out the next round, or maybe she wanted to take me out last round? I was like, just I didn't trust what she was saying, but I mean, I guess it was true. But she
It
did
was
tell me that.
100% true.
But I peep behind the curtain here, Cade. Production was all like Cade's winning this game going into this round.
Really?
We were. Yeah, we were all like, yeah, Cade is
Funny how
playing the
that
best
turned
game here completely. And then you get voted out immediately. So maybe production kiss of death. But one of the interesting conversations that happened here is Ryan's talking to you, Erin, and says that Cade told Katz to play his idol. Did you do that, Cade?
Oh my god. So right before the Sam vote, this is actually when Final 8 Cade kicked in. I was thinking, and I was like, how am I gonna do this? Like, how am I gonna go into this next round? I was still thinking I was gonna play both sides going into the next round. And so I was like, okay, I don't want any idols in. I was like, best case scenario, Sam goes, Katz plays his idol. So I was texting Katz, I was on call with Ryan. Ryan was not telling me what I told Katz, but I told Katz that Ryan was telling me the vote was him, so Katz would play his idol. Like 5 or 10 minutes before tribal. So yes, I did do that, but that was like my brain was like getting so scatterbrained and like things were blowing up here and here and here and here and here. Like,
yeah.
It was I did do that, yes.
All right. Well, that gets us into our immunity challenge. And this is a DCP staple. And it's Extreme Flip Cup. And let me tell you, Extreme Flip Cup has come a long way since it premiered in Exile Island. And let me tell you, not a fan of this challenge. I am because it's great. I'm not because, like Cade, I got voted out on an Extreme Flip Cup round. So there we go,
Only
Cade.
real
That's how
ones
we
get
are
voted
connected
out
here.
on Extreme Flip Cup.
But it's just it's tough. Like, Erin, you do end up winning. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the round you were competing in the immunity challenge while playing Dungeons and Dragons at the same time?
Yes, it is. Yes, in fact, I was in the middle of a Dungeons and Dragons. But in the middle of, I want to say, the final boss fight. My DM was not happy with me at all.
Understandably so. But you end up pulling it off. And just talk to us about Extreme Flip Cup as a challenge. Obviously, we've seen it many times, but like, how do you feel about it? How does it feel as someone who's done a lot of Flip Cup, obviously through games and just, being someone
College.
who, yeah, exactly.
Went to college, yeah.
Has played Flip Cup before.
Yeah.
How is this different and how do you adjust yourself while playing this?
It's so interesting. I really enjoyed it. I was practicing like a lot of the day trying to figure it out. I got into kind of a rhythm, like, but it was just like it was so hard. Once you got out of that rhythm, it's so hard to get back into it. I am phenomenal at regular Flip Cup. Like I'm big enough to say that. Like I'm not humble enough to not say that. I am a great Flip Cup player.
Well, and we saw that
Extreme Flip
earlier.
Cup?
We saw that earlier in a challenge where you had to do the 3 consecutive cups and you're like, bang, 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 it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm great at regular Flip Cup. Extreme Flip Cup is an entirely different beast. It's so different because you're not just trying to land it. You're trying to like you have to get the height, you have to get like the rotation right on, and it's so different and so much harder than regular Flip Cup. It's like, yeah, it's completely its own game. It is insanely fun. I really enjoyed it. And it's like it's because it's a little bit of a puzzle of like figuring out it's like a puzzle, it's math, it's like all of that nerdy shit that I really love, and just like getting into that flow of it. And it was, it's so fun, so extremely fun. I had a blast doing it and like practicing it and doing it, and then to win it, I was like, yeah, if I didn't win a challenge with Flip Cup in the name, I would have been extremely disappointed in myself. So I'm really glad I did.
Was that pun intended, Erin?
It was. Thank you, Cade, for noticing.
Of course. So, Cade, how was your experience with Extreme Flip Cup? How are you feeling doing this?
Yeah, I had fun until I didn't,
I do. I do. I've been there.
I was extremely jealous when I saw Ryan's strategy, and I was like, why didn't I do that?
The bed strategy. I'm glad you brought it up because this is one of the wildest things we've ever seen. And honestly, there's not enough attention in the episode to how much conversation was around the fact that Ryan was playing on a bed. And I get it. Having a surface to like stick that cup is super good. We even see partway through the challenge, if you're paying close enough attention, you'll notice Hathaway grabs a towel and puts it underneath where they're flipping cups. And when I flip cups in a challenge, I have like trading card playmats that I have. I'm flipping onto that because the cup sticks on it. Just those little things, preventing that, like, the bounce from a hard surface. So it's interesting. The thing that's fascinating about the bed is getting that cup to sit there in the first place so you can flip it, because beds are soft and not very even a lot of the time. So it was very credible for Ryan to get as far into the challenge as he did, flipping cups on a bed.
He was pissed he didn't win. Ryan really wanted that one. He really wanted it.
Understandable.
He was
But
sitting there talking to me, saying like, "Oh, I'm so mad I didn't win that." And like, first of all, saying, "I'm so mad I didn't win that." He was like, "I feel like I really needed that one." I was like, "Ryan, they've only voted for me. Like, you're sitting there telling me that."
yeah.
He's
Yeah,
like,
and obviously it's best case scenario for you, Erin. You
Oh,
win
yeah.
immunity in, the third straight round where you're clearly the vote. So now things have to change. So this is unfortunately at Kay's expense at this point. But Erin, how were you approaching this vote? What was your desired outcome of this round?
I believe we wanted half to go home. I think I initially was pitching for Katz to go, but I think I don't remember who countered it. Like Bryant or Cade probably said they wanted half instead. And I was like, at that point, I was playing the alliance game again, because that's the game that I like to play. And I was like, these are my people. These are who I'm locked in with. So like, these are the people that I'm going to be doing things with. So we settled on half, and so I was like, that's I guess what we're going to be doing. I felt like, yeah, Katz would have been a better vote for me personally, just because I know he's the figurehead of the Erin must die
Yeah.
narrative. So, but other people wanted half, and I'm a good ally, and I don't need to get my way if people that have saved my life 3 rounds in a row want something else.
Totally reasonable. A very reasonable approach to the situation. One of the major conversations we see after this immunity challenge is Jordyn's talking to Bryant about this idea that Ryan and you, Cade, are kind of just sliding into the background and letting this, like, what did Hathaway call them? The Three Stooges versus Erin war to go on, and like letting the dust settle and then going from there. When you see that conversation happening, how does that make you feel? Was Jordyn right? Is this exactly what you were doing in this situation?
Yeah, that was. She was right to say that. She obviously at the time she did not realize how big of a part I had in that, but that was true. She was right.
And then this really gets into it. This is where Bryant's like, you know what? I'm pretty sure we can get Gabby. We can figure this out. We can pick up Gabby. And then we see Bryant talk to Gabby. And this is, I want to commend Bryant here. Bryant doesn't say, hey, this is what we should do. The way Bryant approaches this conversation with Gabby is, would you be willing to vote out either of these two? And it's not like if this is what's best for our game. There's no pitch going on. It's just a simple think about this. That is something we don't do enough in Survivor, in all honesty. People are just so intent on strong arming people in these games, approaching someone in a manner that like gives them an opportunity to think about the situation and then decide what's best for themselves without being pitched a bunch of information. But like knowing the options there is so much more impactful than laying out like this massive logical rant about why it makes perfect sense to get someone out of the game. Bryant is playing. I think in these 2 rounds we can see Bryant's playing phenomenally at this point. He's really has such a great control. Again, coming from that position where he was dead in the water. Bryant was completely dead in the water. It seemed like Bryant was going for a long time. And now it just seems like Bryant's really getting to the point where he's gotten into his groove in this game. He's close with Gabby as these original Gerstlauers, still like working enough with Ryan and working with both of you two, but also realizes now's the time when I can make a move, get rid of these floaters in the middle of the game and use these people on the bottom. And I think being on the bottom is what lets Bryant use the bottom, because Bryant knows how important the people are on the bottom because he was the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll get nothing but Bryant praise from me. I
Yeah.
think he's
Yeah.
incredible. I think he, as a newbie, this being
Yeah.
his first Survivor game is
That's-
absolutely insane. Like
Yeah.
I'm watching these episodes, even in confessionals.
Mhm.
Bryant is so engaging and
Yeah.
like he is my favorite person to watch in confessionals because he tells you exactly what he's thinking. He tells it to you in a fun way. Like he is, oh my God, he's so funny and he's so like he's such a good. I think he would kill me if I didn't make a stutter joke here. Stutter aside, he is such a good talker.
Mhm.
Like he's just like he just makes you understand what he's saying in a way that like it makes it like you're like, oh duh, like yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Or like, but yeah, he does it in a way of like this is a conversation. He makes sure that it always feels like a conversation, that he's not
Yeah.
putting anything on you, that you're coming to something together. And that is something that a lot of people struggle with. But he is like, oh yeah, he's so impressive, honestly. And especially for a newbie, like yeah, rookie of the season by far.
And I like his whiteboard.
Yes. We love a prop every once in a while. We got a lot of props in these couple of seasons or these couple episodes here.
Oh,
We have this. Katz is talking about this new five, this group of Jordyn, Hathaway, Bryant, Gabby, and himself. And of course, at this point, Bryant has revealed that Cade flipped one round earlier than everyone thought, and is really what's driving this vote against Cade there. There's concern about you, Erin, of course, despite the fact that you have immunity and they can't do anything about it. And again, I hate to keep having to give praise to Bryant, but here we are. Another very skillful thing Bryant does here is he says, listen, Jordyn, Katz, we have to continue saying your name. Like, we have to do that because they're not going to believe us otherwise. So again, it's these little things that really make this work well. And again, it's why we see Bryant positioning himself so well here, is because he is putting the care into every conversation where it's like, is it very obvious that Bryant has to say this? Absolutely. Is it something that he needs to like tell Katz and Jordyn? No, they're going to have to, they would assume in that situation that is what's going on here. But because he's saying it, like, again, it's these little things where it's like, don't presume things in Survivor, just make things very clear, and then no one can get upset with you for it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is like to let people know that like these are the people that you're with. You have to make sure that they know what you're doing at all times. Like you have to make sure that you're running back to them with the information of like, this is what I'm telling these people. So if you hear this, like, don't worry about it. And like Bryant did that with me I think in like the round the Tawni went to Rocks. Like he was like, by the way, they're trying to get me to vote you. So if you hear that I'm voting you, just know that that's not true. And it's like, yeah, that's what you do with the people that you're actually working with, because then they won't worry. And even if you're not actually working with those people, still say that, because then they won't worry, even if it's true that you're flipping on them.
No, exactly. It's just, again, it's great having a newbie player doing these things because it gives us these Survivor 101 moments, right? Like, it's like, just learn this. Study Bryant's game. Like,
Genuinely.
just study it. Up to this point, he is playing flawlessly. We see Hathaway kind of talk about their position in the game. They feel very comfortable with it. They feel like they bonded with Bryant and Gabby at just the right point to help further themselves in the game here. Not really comfortable with the two of you plus Ryan though, because always seems like you have something up your sleeves. Why, Cade? Why are you guys always scheming?
That's what we do. We're schemers. Nothing else to it. We're just schemers.
It's actually true.
Yeah, that's fair. I
are real
understand.
schemers.
Playing Survivor, you gotta scheme.
We see Hathaway tell Gabby that they really want people who've been under the radar to make it far into this game at this point. Which is nice. It's nice. You know what? There's a lot of times where people watching Survivor hate it when the people who are under the radar get far into the game and make it to the end and then win. I mean, look at some of the most maligned Survivor winners, right? And yes, we finally got around on Natalie White as a good Survivor winner. But, people don't like it when like the social player wins and the player who's like sitting back wins. But it's nice seeing this vocalization of no, this is actual strategy at this point. Like, let's do this together because this gets us to the end. Because guess what? You can't win Survivor if you don't get to the end of the game. Shocker, I know, but it's just the way it works. We get to tribal council, and it's a lot of like the usual tribal council stuff. Although I do want to say, Gabby dropped some of the best wisdom ever in this tribal council. When she says votes are personal as much as they are, votes aren't personal as much as they are a necessity to keep the game going. Gabby, I have to say, this is some of the greatest Survivor wisdom I've ever heard, because you know what? We've already talked about the emotional impact of this game and how playing this game emotionally can be very detrimental for you. This is such a good mantra to have going into Survivor. So all of you prospective DCP players in the future and Survivor players in the future, heed this. Take this, run with it, because this is the type of advice that will let you win a game of Survivor. Okay, we got here. We got to this hashtag blindside.
Hashtag blindside.
So you get voted out of the game 6-2. What's your immediate response seeing that at 6-2? Like, who do you think is the person who turned on you between Erin and Ryan at this point?
Well, so Ryan told me he was gonna vote for me because I was in part of my reasoning for wanting to vote Hath was that I made up that Hath was targeting Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ryan was like, okay, Hath is gonna vote me. It's gonna be 7-1. Let me vote you just in case Hath plays an idol. So it's 6-1-1, and then we're safe, and it goes to Rocks, so we're safe in Rocks. So I knew Ryan was doing that. And then Hath stood up and like pumped their fist, and I was like, okay, Hath must have like orchestrated this. They did not. And then I left the call, and I was like, okay, Erin and Ryan and Hath blindsided me. But that's probably the three that had the least amount to do with it.
Yeah, I just want to show Ryan and my faces at this tribal council.
Yeah.
See it.
Ryan's hands are in his, or face is in his hands.
Yeah.
Erin is grabbing the majority of her face there.
The faces of two people that just fully masterminded a blindside, of course.
Yeah. Right. That's some of the best acting I've ever seen. Absolutely. Okay, now that it's come to light here, this Ryan vote to hopefully force Rocks, there's such a thing as doing too much in a vote. This is one of those instances.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Idols are just out of the game. There's potential of an idol coming back. I understand the logic behind it. Make them have it. Like, just make them have it at that point. Like, I get it. Okay, we'll save ourselves. It's fine. But you know what would have been worse? If this was a 5-3 vote with Cade going home. That would have been a lot worse than a 6-2 vote with Cade going home.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So don't risk this type of thing. It's just, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I saw the logic until you brought up that 5-3 point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That would have sucked.
It would have been really bad if Ryan was the vote that actually voted you out of the game.
Yeah, if he was like the deciding vote by accident.
And I'll be honest, during the tribal council, we thought that was going to be the case. We were worried. But alas, it's not the case. Cade, you are out of the game now. We get the Erin boot. And Erin, I'm sorry, you kind of get the shortest episode of the season. Just because
no, it's fair because all of the setup to why I'm going home has been the whole rest of the merge.
Yes.
And I also I was so busy during this week. Like I was going to Connecticut to like hang out with friends for the weekend. So I had like that week I had one call with Bryant like right after the Cade tribal where I was just, sobbing to him and saying like it was very different than my damage control calls post Benji blindside. And I said this to in the confessional that I filmed the day the episode came out. But so
You're
I
still
filmed
great
it-
making confessionals for us. Okay.
because the only confessional I had filmed for that for that episode during the time was the one right after the vote where I was McKenna said it best. Hold on, let me read the text that she sent me on Thursday. She said, so in your boot, you only have a confessional of crying over Cade. Do you want to film something else and send it to me, or are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So we filmed something else. Just to add some additional context. But yeah, I was going up to Connecticut that weekend, so I wasn't gonna have a ton of time anyway. So I had that confessional, I had that call with Bryant, and then I had like a call with Ryan while I was in Connecticut. And I told him straight up, I was like, you're the only person I'm gonna be calling while I'm here. Like, I'm with friends. It was very clear throughout the season I was living my life while playing Survivor, and I was not letting Survivor get in the way of what I was doing with my life. So on my call with Bryant, I was like, I am obviously upset, but I have closed too many doors and I can't do that again. So I'm still with you to the end, no matter what. And like, I understood it at the end of the day. I think the reasoning wasn't necessarily what I thought it was for Cade going home, because in my opinion, I recognized that Cade was the best player in the game.
Right.
So I was like, you just took a shot at the best player in the game. I understand that. And I was like, and Bryant had, and this, I don't know if this is true or not. Bryant told me, because I was like, okay, if I hadn't won immunity, would that have been me? And he said no. So I don't know how true that is, but it could be. It seemed like they wanted to more take a shot at Cade there. But I just like, I understood it more. And I was telling Bryant, like, okay, regardless, like, I'm still with you no matter what. Like, I'm not going to be able to talk to people this week. Like, I have no contact with Jordyn or Katz at this point anyway. So it's like, I'm with you regardless, is pretty much what I was telling him. So then I just went to Connecticut and didn't really have many other conversations. I was just like, tell me what you guys are doing. That's what I'll do. And I didn't have, I just didn't have the time or the like bandwidth to be doing a ton that round. And that might have been what sent me home.
That happens sometimes in these ORGs, right? Like, you're still living life. You have a life to live. And I'm going to tell this to literally everyone. Your life's really important. Like, this is a game, not for $1 million. Like, yes, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a part of life. And it's a great opportunity. But don't let it take over your life. The first game I played during COVID. I didn't have a life, so I could do that. The second game I played was during COVID. I still didn't have a life. I could do that. The last game I played, I had a life. It was frustrating. It was hard. It was difficult. But it's all about the priorities, right? And like, at the end of the day, this is a game. Like, yes, we want you dedicated. We at Dynamic Character Productions like it when you dedicate your time to this game. We also understand you have a life. And like, there are different ways of dealing with that. Erin, like, despite being busy, like, you still were actively engaged in this game the entire time. Like, we could never, like, condemn you for that. And yes, obviously you end up going home because of this. That happens. Sometimes life gets in the way.
Yeah. I think it was just the difference of, like, everything else I was busy with. And it is really funny because, like, I'm doing challenges in restaurant bathrooms. I'm doing tribal councils from Mets games. Like, I was living my life while I was doing this, but the difference here was that, like, I was going on a trip to go visit friends. And like, I was going to be actively, like, with people at all times. And like, it was, I did the live night thing from my birthday party at a board game bar. Luckily, I am friends with other people who have played Survivor, and so they understood. But yeah, I was just like, I didn't think that, also, I just didn't think that this was the round to take me out. I figured that I would be catching votes anyway, because, I'm the only name that Katz and Jordyn know how to spell at that point. But I was just like, I didn't think that was the round, because I had just been blindsided. I clearly had no agency. And it's like, I told Bryant, and he knew that my doors were closed with other people. So I'm like, why would you vote me out here when you know that I've got you to the end? Like, I just didn't think that it made any sense. So I was like, I can afford to take a little break this round. Like, the only people I really need to talk to are Bryant and Ryan. Those are the people that I did talk to. So I was like, at that point, I was kind of like, I'm on borrowed time anyway. I should not be in this game. So if I go while I'm here at UConn, I'm going to be getting drunk anyway. They're winning the basketball national championship while I'm here. So, it was a party.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I want to circle back on what you said about like Cade going. I think Bryant correctly identified Cade was the person that he could get Jordyn and Katz to vote for. And that was the reason why Cade ends up going here. I think, again, it's like that threat assessment and figuring out exactly where to go. This was the best way Bryant could manipulate Jordyn and Katz to doing something that was solely his move. And we see that talked about in this episode where people are like, Bryant just made a big move. And again, like this is that managing a threat level and everything. But it doesn't seem to be blowing back on Bryant at all in this episode. And Bryant even says in a confessional early on in this episode, I really hope this, like, people are going to repay me for this move because I saved some of these people. Hopefully they see that and they're willing to keep me in. And I will see in the coming weeks if that's the case. What do we don't have a lot going on in this episode. We have like the shortest immunity challenge ever. In before and after. It's simple. It's a before and after challenge. There's just a question of, did this happen in the game prior to this happening in the game? Most of it was challenge related, because that's the thing that we can guarantee all of you saw. And pretty straightforward. Jordyn ends up winning it after another head-to-head with Bryant at the end. So Jordyn secures her second immunity win, which is quite strong here. And, the writing's on the wall, Erin.
Yeah.
Like
I tell myself every single game I'm going to start taking notes. Never do. Never do.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And it's something that I've actually thought about as we've been talking about things, and Cade's talked about. Cade, you've been talking about how like scattered range you were at times and stuff. And I know I've never done it. Maybe it's time to start taking notes in games. Maybe just having a notebook. And you know what? You see it. You see people who do it. Just take notes in games.
Yeah. I do. It's so easy during minis because you're just sitting there at your computer the whole time and you can just easily have a notebook. But when you're in an org, you just don't think about it because you're like,
Erin, you did take notes. You sent me a Google Doc, remember?
I did. Actually, I did. That's true.
What?
Actually, I did. That's right. I figured, I think we kind of figured that there was going to be a game knowledge challenge coming up, but my notes weren't the order of people got eliminated in challenges. It was like, here's the round, here's the challenge, here's who went home, here was the vote count, here's who voted where. It was, I had a whole doc written up that I shared with Cade and Ryan.
Yeah.
It was interesting. That's more than I've ever done in the game, I'll be honest. I didn't
do it throughout the game. I put it all together at once.
Okay, there you go.
It was not a living doc. I put it all down.
Living docs are great. They're going to help when you have lies on lies on lies, Cade. Trust me. It'll help. You can keep everything straight. Just make sure no one realizes you're referencing your notes when you're talking to them.
I voted Katz. Yeah.
So Jordyn's a little nervous about winning 2 at this point, like due to threat, like reasonable. But again, I'll say it again. I don't think challenge wins are that important in orgs, but that's just me. They're important when they save you, but they're not as important. But the like threat level of it all isn't that important. Like there are some people, and especially with like newer players, I think you see it more where they do get scared of people who win multiple immunity challenges. But I think the more experienced org players realize these are crapshoots, guys. We literally were flipping cups last round. Like that could have been anyone.
Yeah. I think it's also a difference of like, I agree that it's not like a good reason to like vote for somebody at the end if it like they just have comp wins to ride on. But I understand like that being a reason to be scared of like bringing someone to Final Four, for example, of like you don't want somebody there that's just gonna like you figure is just gonna win that challenge,
Yeah, absolutely. We see a conversation between Ryan and Jordyn. And I bring this up because there's some very important things that come up in this conversation. That is Ryan's ducks. Oh, Erin's got a duck here too. There you go.
In honor of Ryan.
In honor of Ryan. Ryan, your duck legacy continues. Man, Ryan was all about these ducks this round.
Keep it actually.
Just these two ducks and this comparison. And you know, Ryan makes a really good point. You decide which of these two ducks is cooler.
Yeah.
And that is such a big thing. There's a lot of talk in these two episodes about like perception is reality. And you know what? I think we say that a lot. And I think we say it way too much when we're talking about these social strategy games, because you know what actually is reality? Reality. Perception isn't reality because perception can be manipulated. Therefore, like I understand the purpose of the phrase, but it's just inaccurate because what it's really trying to say is like your perspective matters and like that will impact the reality of the game, but it doesn't make the reality of the game. And that's the important distinction here. And Ryan comparing these two decks, it's so profound yet so goofy.
He's
right.
That's the great thing about Ryan.
Yes.
Is that he is so smart, actually, but he wants you to think he's so dumb.
Yes. But he is quite intelligent and he has an idea of what's going on. And like that's why we see him still surviving in this game, despite literally being ostracized in the first vote of this entire season.
Yeah.
In this conversation, Jordyn says that her and Katz will split votes at the end. Again, this is the pitches you have to start making. It's the pointy end of the stick, right? Where we're getting to the end of the game, and you need to make your pitches as to why it's better to keep you in here. I understand what Jordyn's doing. I understand that thought, and you know what? With the amount of Vekomas on the jury, probably not a bad pitch at this point. Katz just declares that Erin, you, and Ryan are his enemies.
Yeah.
Only ally in the game is Jordyn, and I think this is where it would be really nice to see some reflection from Katz in game, and I'm sure we'll get it out after the game, but in game it would have been really nice to see Katz reflecting on why this is the situation here. And again, we talked about it a lot about this idea of like building relationships, and we saw like Hathaway was talking about building a relationship with Brian and Gabby a couple of rounds ago, and it paying off at this point. Managing relationships is so important in these games because that is literally the game. These like social strategy games are we get tricked a lot. We get tricked so much into thinking like challenges are important, and they are important to an extent, right? Like they can preserve you in the game, and finding advantages and all these big moves are important because they propel you in the game. But what really propels you in the game is your relationships with people, whether it be good relationships with people, which make it so people want to work with you, or like, honestly, at some points, bad relationships, which get you to the end of the game. Because again, you can't win the game if you don't get to the end of the game. Sometimes you have to tank your relationships. And the problem is I think at this point in the game, Katz isn't managing his relationships with everyone. Like Erin, you've literally said you haven't talked to Katz for like 3 rounds at this point. And it's so important to really focus on those things in order to set yourself up in this game. You have to be able to get to the end of the game to win the game, but you also need to be able to get the votes at the end of the game. And I'm not a proponent of bitter juries. I don't think that's really a thing because I think a bitter jury is just a reflection of social game.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you have to take into consideration some people might be bitter. And especially with the way we've seen people go out in this game, some people might be bitter. So you just have to really manage all your relationships, even the bad ones, even the ones where it's like you feel like this is pointless to have that conversation because you know what, this person doesn't matter. Those pre-merge votes where it's like whatever, this person's gone and they don't even vote for a winner, those matter too. And you know, you get out of the game and everyone can be happy and enjoy each other, or everyone can fucking hate each other and never want to talk to each other again. That is up to you as a player to decide what's going to happen there. And managing these relationships really help that. But I mean, this is essentially the end of the episode, and I'm kind of just vamping here, hoping that Cade joins us again. we can wrap up after the Snuff, but we get to Tribal Council. Again, it's just a lot of, talking. Erin, you're in the washroom.
Yep.
For this Tribal Council.
In another bathroom. I was
Yep.
at the basketball stadium at UConn.
Yeah. Ryan brings up his Ducks again.
Yep.
Pretty much the exact same pitch he gave Jordyn, which was more hilarious. Because
verbatim,
it's
pretty much.
Yeah, it's verbatim. It is like the exact same thing. It's like, holy cow, he did he pitch that to everyone? Like,
I
did
didn't
you
get
have a
that.
conversation with that before?
I think he told me that he had props for Tribal.
Okay.
But it was he's so funny.
Well, because Hathaway's also wearing ducks on their ears.
I know. I don't think that was planned.
That was just a coincidence, right?
I think Ryan only said that to Jordyn before Tribal.
Wild. Just
I don't know.
Wild that it worked out that way. But alas, here we are. It's the end. You're voted out. Is it a relief at this point just to be out of the game? I know, because when I went in this position of being the obvious target for a few weeks or for a few rounds, you get there and it's like, yeah, I've been playing on borrowed time. It's just time to get out. It was relieving for me. It's like, whatever, I got to sit back. Just I still get to impact this game. Did it feel like a relief, or was it still just heartbreaking that you weren't playing the game anymore?
I love the game of Survivor, and especially this game was some of the most fun I have ever had playing Survivor. And so I was I was a little relieved in the sense of I didn't have to deal with some of these people in game anymore. But no, I was definitely way more bummed. I wanted to keep fighting as long and as hard as I could. And yeah, the fact that I felt like there were rounds where it was the right move to take me out, and this was not one of them, I think bummed me out even more.
As a viewer of this round, it seemed like an anticlimactic that word round for Erin to go.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? But it does happen. It's over now. Before we wrap things up, anything else either of you two want to say?
I just want to, just the whole the villainization of me throughout the season was just something that really ground my gears.
Microphone.
Thank you. Just because it just felt to me like the people that, I want to be clear, turned on me first.
Yep, that did happen.
Then fully villainized me for staying in the game and for fighting and for trying to prove them wrong that I couldn't do anything after. And it was well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. And it's just watching them call me the big bad evil, the big bad villain, and just talking so much shit about just me being such a big villain for just playing Survivor. And still wanting to work with them, still actively working with them, and then talking to anybody else, unfortunately, apparently was not allowed. But just watching them just fully villainize me was really, really tough. I'm not gonna lie.
I bet. Yeah.
It's not even close to the worst thing I've seen about myself on YouTube Survivor. But it was just I just couldn't believe how I didn't understand the cognitive dissonance there of why I am so terrible and such a villain for trying to save myself after you just blindsided me.
Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense to me. So
I understand why they did it, because nobody wants to be the villain. As much as people come into Survivor games sometimes saying, yeah, I want to play a villain, I want to be we don't want to be the villain. We want to be the hero. We want to be loved. Even if we say we want to be hated, we don't. We want to be loved. And that is one of those things where you have to vilify someone in order to justify what you're doing to them sometimes. And it's something we see in society a lot, outside of the game Survivor. Just in general, we see it a lot. You vilify people that you have to do wrong to in order to make yourself feel better about doing wrong to. This is Survivor. This is a game, not for $1 million. This is a game for internet clout, essentially.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic game. It is the best game in the world. But in the end, we're dealing with people, and this is being recorded, and we see it. We don't want you to pull punches. We want you to vilify these
Yeah.
people. But I'm very confident that this cast has done that, and like they've reached out to you and they have said, you know what, like, whoa, we made some mistakes there, because they still are friendly people, and they do care about you in the end.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And absolutely. Yeah. I love this cast with my entire heart. Every single person. Like it's insane. Like we just came out of playing Werewolf tonight, like coming into this. Like we've played, you know, we get on call, we play games, like we hang out. I love these people.
Mhm.
They are all so fun. And you guys put together such an incredible cast and you did an amazing job. And yeah, I guess that's the last thing I'll say is that I love these people so much. And I think that this was, yeah, one of the most fun groups I have ever had the pleasure of playing with. And I'm so happy that we continue to be like so close and love each other so much.
Cade, do you have anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get vilified, but I did have a lot of fun. Definitely the most well put together game I've ever played. Shout out all of Prod. Shout out all the cast, because the cast made this game really fun as well. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. That is true. I didn't play Werewolf, and I haven't been playing because I've been busy, but I'm down to play sometime soon, guys. So.
Oh, there you have it. Thank you, both of you. Absolutely phenomenal, and as entertaining as I knew today would be. Before we wrap things up, we've got to do it. We have our DCP
Oh,
tradition.
hold on. I had one other thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
John, you are an incredible interviewer.
Oh, thank you.
So
Like
true.
I'm watching
so
all of the After the Snuffs and throughout today, like your energy and you're just like your questions, your flow, so good. You are so good at this.
Thank you. I really hope McKenna doesn't cut that out of the episode and everyone can hear those reads from me. Thank you very much. I that really does mean a lot to me. A lot to me. So thank you. Absolute delight talking to both of you. Cade, if you could sum up your game in one word, what would it be?
First, I just want to say I agree with Erin. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you.
I don't know. I've been thinking about this ever since I started watching Minetta Bank after the snows for that, because I was like, oh, he's probably gonna ask me that, and I think the word I landed on was there's either two.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a cheat answer, but it's either sneaky or lucky.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes it's just better to be lucky than good. So I get it. I absolutely get it. Erin, the same question as you. One word to sum up your game, what would it be?
Fight.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. I agree with
That was
both
a
of you.
good answer.
Fantastic answers for both of you. Thank you once again. I hope everyone listening enjoyed listening as much as I did talking with you two, because it's been absolutely wonderful. And that's it for After the Stuff this week. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's still a bit more Corkscrew Cove left. Who's going to pull it out? You're going to have to tune in and find out. We got a new episode dropping on Monday and Thursday, and I will see you next week for another episode of After the Snuff. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.